Well, another thrilling weekend in the Munster LGFA Senior Championship as Cork and Kerry play out a thriller in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Waterford edged out Tipp and Dungarvan. Look back in the games and joined once again by Dearbhla and Paul Jenkins. How are you going, lads?
Good, Tomás, thanks.
Paul, you got a cracker in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't expecting such a good game, and I'd say it might even 59, 60 minutes gone. The game was still over. The referee ended up playing 68 minutes, I think, in the end. There was plenty of stoppages, but that last 8 minutes then was explosive altogether. But the game was dead and buried, though, you could have said, with I think 2 minutes left in normal time. There was still something like 7 or 8. Couldn't even have been 10 points in it. And Cork just came back into it. It was some finish. I'd say there are a lot of people who were on the road home and missed out on some of the best action of possibly the year.
Yeah, because obviously the updates were going flying over and back, and I looked at one stage, it was 2:14, 2:10, and I looked then maybe 7 or 8 minutes later, 2:14 apiece. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, Louise Hurtig now, she scored 1-7 on the day again, matching what she got last week against Waterford, and she came off. Now maybe it's a coincidence. I don't really think so, to be honest, because she was the out ball. She was stopping the Cork kickouts as well. She was massive on the press with that. They usually went short to Ciara O'Sullivan, and Louise was in on top of her. So that was kind of stopping at one end. And then Cork were able to just come because they weren't under as much pressure at the other end. So I think her going off did have a huge impact on it. Then they're able to bring on the likes of Orla Cahalan. But the game completely swung, and one of the big things would be Niamh Hurtig going off. So I don't know where they rest. She did go down a little bit injured, but I don't know where they're looking up and going, geez, we're 10 points up. This one is 1, so we can afford to take her off. But it didn't work for him in the end. Yeah,
because the physio walked off the field with her. So whether she was carrying something or not.
Yeah, and I suppose week on week, they probably can't be taking too many chances. And as we said, they were around 10 points, maybe slightly less. I think it was maybe 9 or 10 at that stage when she came off. So maybe they felt the job is done here, we'll take her off. But it had a huge impact on the game.
Yeah, and well, looking at the game, Cork got off to a great start. There were 3 points to nil up in a few minutes.
Yeah, Kerry didn't get going at all until they got the goal. They got a goal in the point in quick succession to go back into the lead. Niamh Carmody got that goal again. Another kind of the opposite of last week. Last week, she went on a big run and set up Niamh Hurtig to finish. And this week, she was on the end of a pass from Louise Niamh Hurtig and she put it in the net. But yeah, they were up and going then. But yeah, Cork definitely made the better start and they looked sharp. And I suppose they were playing in their home ground, or as home ground as they get out of Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They're not there that often, but they definitely did settle quicker. And once Kerry did get up and going then, though, they kind of chugged along and were by half time they were 1-7 to 7 points. That goal from Niamh Carberry was kind of separating the teams then, and they were the better side then as the kind of half wore on.
Yeah, and Dearbhla and even Connacht carrying the world of ball, coming deep again and driving forward for Kerry, laying foundations for the girls inside to do the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. It's becoming a huge part of the game now. Is you have those 1 or 2 girls that are doing tremendous work, bringing the ball from one side to the other, and doing that simple layoff then and sending the ball in for the scores. And I don't think the girls they get the credit that they deserve really at times, because they're the ones doing the hardest part of it. Like it's you'd see it even inside with Tipp as well. There's girls doing savage amount of work and then they're doing the ball into Maloney to get her score. But those girls need that recognition, because it's not easy doing the hard work to get that ball into them.
Yeah, and Paul, just after half time, straight from the throw, and Katie Quirk throw forward for Cork and was unlucky not to get a goal that time.
Yeah, they had plenty of chances. Yeah, they started really well into the second half. And Kerry maybe were slower coming out of traps in the second half again, but Cork had loads of goal chances throughout the whole game. I suppose we'll probably talk about it in a couple of minutes. They did eventually get to, but they had plenty of chances. There was plenty of goal chances at both ends, really. Like Cork had one cleared off the line as well. I think in the second half it was as well. So there was plenty of goal chances, and the goalie there, Ciara Butler, was in goal for Kerry. She started instead of Mary Ellen Bulger, and she'd plenty to do throughout the day.
Yeah, because that goal chance that you're probably talking to, knocked off the line, that came straight after the penalty. Sheaf O'Shea was fouled. She actually ended up going off injured, but it was a weird sort of a decision.
Weird for a load of different reasons. We were talking about there off air, but like we talked about it last week about that kind of charge and tackle. And I actually got onto the Ladies Gaelic Association this morning because I wanted to get like the definition of the word. Now, unfortunately, it didn't come back to me yet. They're all busy today, unfortunately, but hopefully by next week or by the weekend we'll have a clear definition of it. But he seemed to go the opposite way of what we saw below in Dungarvan with G and what you usually see in ladies football, where the attacker, if someone stands them up, the ball goes with the person who stands them up, and the attacker is done for the foul. In this case, it was Maeve O'Sullivan came out from the goals. Chief O'Shea ran into her. Big, huge pause. Now, in fairness to the referee, when he talked to the umpires, I think you were saying was it 4 minutes. He really wanted to get the decision right. And whether he did or not, like, again, if it was the men's game, you'd say, yeah, stonewall penalty. In the ladies' game, you don't usually see those given, I don't think.
Yeah, but he probably had his mind made up. Like, he didn't wait 4 minutes to make the decision. He probably should have signalled it, because all the players were stunned when the penalty was given, like, on both sides.
Yeah, like, you know, even as Paul said, it's confusing though to players as well, because they're still not getting it. Like, do you know what I mean? And yeah, look, Sheafer ran in, and she did get, you know, taken off injured, but I don't know. I think it's not a well notified rule to girls, like, you know, and players are getting caught week in, week out now. Like, the last 2 games we're after seeing it in both of them. Do you know what I mean? And even Paul's after seeing it as well. Like, so, you know, something I think really has to be flagged about that rule, you know, to make girls more aware of it, because other than that, you know, you're going to be given frees, and it's not going to be, you know, really aware. Girls aren't going to be aware of the reason why, you know, these are going. But like in the rule book, it's saying if an attacker is coming to a defender and the attacker has enough space to go around her, she must go around her, and if she hits into her, it's a free out. But if an attacker is driving towards a goal and the defender stands, you know, cuts off her angle, and then the attacker hits in it, it's a free in. But it's still, you know, it's still a bit of a confusing rule, because there's only so much, like, you can't, you know, stop her ground if you're halfway out the field and then she runs into you and then you're going to give her free away. Like, you know, it is definitely a rule that needs to be looked on again, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose, Paul, different referees would have different interpretations of that. And that's probably the frustrating thing.
Yeah, and we saw that in the game over the weekend, the 2 games over the weekend, there was different calls and the same thing. And as Dearbhla said there, and I'm glad she pointed out the rule nearly word for word, which is great to get. But with the pace of the game and the speed of the players are gone now and the strength of the players, that's an impossible decision to make for a referee. Like, in a split second like that, they're going to get it wrong. Of course, they're going to get it wrong, and that frustrates. Like, both managers at the end of the game I was at below in Cork, both mentioned the referee, and they weren't too happy about it. And like, it's unfair to go on about referees all the time as well, because the rule is so hard to police, and like, we know how hard it is to get referees in any sport these days. Who wants to be a referee? So, like, yeah, it's something they probably need to look at and make that rule a little bit more clearer and easier to define and easier to referee.
But should he have indicated earlier that it was a penalty if he had his mind made up? Because Maeve O'Sullivan had the ball in her hand for nearly 4 minutes, expecting a free out.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Yeah, what was he in talking to the umpires about? Or did he just want to make sure Chief O'Shea got the attention she deserved? Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, after that, Cork brought on the likes of Orla Cahalan. Shane Ronan said that she wasn't happy not starting, and by God, did she make a difference when she came in?
And like, she's small, like small in stature, huge of heart, but like, to get the goal she got on, she snuck in around the back post, got the punch on into the back of the net. Like, that's not something you expect of a player of her size, but she got a point then before that, which only went over the crossbar by a small bit. If she felt like it, maybe she could have went for the goal, but made a huge contribution. She's involved with the Camogie players as well. I think it's only her first year involved with the senior panel, but geez, she's really driving it on, and you'd expect her to start next week if this performance is that to go by.
Yeah, another one of the minor team from last year, Dearbhla, that's stepping up there for Cork.
Yeah, I know, it's, you know, it's really good to see, and I think she scored 1-1, I think it was. You know, so like, for anyone to be coming on and scoring 1-1, and to yet be disappointed when that start, and just go to show the characteristic of a player that she is, you know, and how driven she is to be playing the football, you know, and to be just coming out of minor, like, it's brilliant, really, to be seeing it.
Yeah, and after Kerry got the second goal, and they were pushing Paul, and they had one chance. I'm not sure who took the shot. Was it Emer Meany took the shot and went wide? And you were actually mentioning in commentary, Kira Butler was taking her time to get the ball below the corner of the Black Rock end. She was definitely playing the clock because I looked at it back. There was 2 footballs behind the net, like she's 2 yards away from her.
Jeez, that's good eyes. I didn't spot that on the day now, but yeah, that looked like it was over. Like, I don't know what the clock on the corner, I think it was in maybe 64, 65 minutes gone in the game. Like, you'd think it was over. And I think she even took a step back to give herself a bit of space, and she went for it. But yeah, she got the angles wrong. But yeah, that looked all over. And I suppose you can't blame Kira Butler for what she did. But I think then after that, like, it should have been over. I think Lynch then came out with the ball, and Sir Caught, as you know, full of experience, all-star winner, everything else. And she came out and she was done for travelling, which was borderline as well. But that was one thing. But then she was a bit frustrated and she threw the ball away. And then they brought her in and just made this whole thing a little bit easier. And that's where Cork got the equalising score from. So I'd say the Kerry management won't be too happy when they look back at that either.
Yeah, Katie Cork showed good composure that time, Dearbhla, because she missed last week through injury and she was back in. And she done well to kick that ball over the bar under pressure.
Yeah, she did, absolutely. And look, to be put under pressure like that and to put it over it, yeah, in those situations you have to keep your head light, and just focus on what you need to be doing with the ball. And yeah, it was a good score and a well needed one as well.
Yeah, moving on to Dungarvan, Dearbhla, Waterford had a game plan from the start and they stuck to it, and they never let Tipp get into their stride at all. Yeah,
no, absolutely. From the get go, the way they played the football the other day was brilliant. And like, if you look at it, they if you think about what they scored against Kerry, like, it was a completely different performance, really, because I think Tipp had some bit of a hope, that they were going to put up a good result against them. But as you said, Waterford did not let Tipp get anywhere near them at all.
Yeah, Paul, you were mentioning Lauren McGregor the week before how Kerry kept her quiet. Tipp had started well and had 4 or 5 chances and didn't take them. And Waterford came down the field and McGregor a half chance and stuck it in the bottom corner. She followed it up with a point straight away. She really showed her class there on Sunday.
Yeah, she must have been watching, because we mentioned it last week how they'd only 2 scorers and they needed players like that to step up, and McGregor has that class and she's able. And she got stuck in right from the very start, didn't she? Because it did look like, as you were saying, Tipperary owned the ball for the first 6 or 7 minutes, I think, without ever getting a score. And that seemed to be their problem the whole game, from what I could see. They couldn't just seem to penetrate through that half back line that Waterford put up there. And they had low, I'd say, possession stats wise, I'd say Tipperary were well ahead. But I suppose there's only one stat that counts, and that's the score, and they were behind on that one.
Yeah, and Dearbhla, Waterford brought Karen McGrath back. She was wearing 13 on her back and brought her back to do a job on Ashley Maloney. Maloney didn't score from play after scoring 112 last week. Like, she really got to grips with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And even as Karen said after her interview, or after the game, she said, Ashley Maloney is the threat for Tipperary, and Karen had a job to do on her. And to be fair to Karen, she done a tremendous job on that. But even, Karen might have been on her, but as well, there was 3 other girls around Aisling as well. Like, at one stage you could see 4 girls just completely surrounding Aisling, and all you could see was Aisling's head because of the height of her, but all around her was a white jersey, like, from Waterford. They knew that she was the threat after scoring 112 from last week. They were like, no way can it be happening again today.
Yeah, and we spoke about it last week, Paul. If Ashley Maloney gets bottled up, somebody else is going to have to step up to the mark for a Tipp. But if there's 4 players standing around Ashley Maloney, logic will tell you that there has to be room for other forwards.
Yeah, you'd imagine. And Karen McGrath did a great job on her, as you mentioned. But it was almost like a double whammy then, because Aisling wasn't getting enough ball inside, so she had to come out the field. And as she came out the field, Karen McGrath followed her. And Karen McGrath's a great baller herself, so she was able to influence things up in midfield then as well, and spray a pass and stuff like that. Like, so it was a double whammy, as I say. Like, they're losing Maloney up around the scoring zone, and then they have Karen McGrath setting up play down the other end of the field. So it was a bit of a disaster on that front, really.
Yeah, and like Katie Murray came in and started on Sunday. She wasn't down originally to start, and she had a huge contribution, Dearbhla. She got a point there not long after Emma Morrissey got the goal for Tipp, but she was involved in a fierce amount of work around the middle third of the field.
Yeah, she was absolutely, and she was doing a savage amount around that third. And look, it just goes to show that now, like these teams, you know, they're I think even Shane Moran mentioned it, like they're panel players. You know, it doesn't matter if you're wearing 30 or 29, like, you know, they all play a huge part, and it just goes to show what, you know, the level these girls are at. And Katie Murray really proved it there the other day that it didn't matter what number she was wearing on, she came in and played a super game of football.
Yeah, and Brie McMaw, she scored 2 points. I know I was kind of getting excited during the commentary that she was no longer playing full forward and Shep the dog. I couldn't think of what to say, but she dictated the game completely.
Yeah, hugely. And look, as you said, she's still young, like, you know, and to be dictating a game at senior level, it's phenomenal. And look, I know she missed her 2 frees or whatever, but she still kept her head throughout the game and, you know, put up a serious defending. You know, and as you said, she was wearing number 14, but it didn't matter. Like with her each side of the field, Breed was somewhere along in that distance, like, you know, and you know the defending that she was doing even was you know, was excellent, and she was putting in some savage tackles, you know, not letting Tipp away with that ball at all. And I think her work rate was just hugely important there the other day, because I think without Breed's work rate there, I think they would have got caught a few times. And you know, she kept her head in every situation that she was put up against. And look, she's playing a huge part, and you know, to be wearing number 14, you know, for such a young age is phenomenal. And you know, I think she'll play a huge role again next week.
Yeah, because Paul, Emma Morrissey had a chance with about 4 or 5 minutes to go. I think there was a point in it once that she went to pull the trigger, and McMahon was back there in the full back line, threw her body in front of the ball, and Waterford came up and got a point. Emma Murray moved up the field after and got a point, probably the insurance point. But her work rate is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, when you're full forward back on the line like that, like, sure, you'd be delighted with that. But even looking at the whole game, like Waterford, I think were definitely the better team. But Tipp still easily could have won it. They had loads of goal chances if they just kind of steadied themselves. If they got one, like, what did Waterford win by 2 points or so in the end? Like, there was plenty of chances for Tipperary to sneak that towards the end. But you have the likes of Brie McMaw was back making those tackles and stopping that happening. But one thing that I thought was a little bit odd, and you see her a lot more than I do, was Ashley Maloney took a couple of frees off the ground. Now, they didn't go her way when they went after. It's not something you see very often in ladies football. Is that something she does often, or were you surprised to see that?
We've seen her done it a few times. Like, it all depends. Like to be honest, I prefer seeing frees off the ground. Maybe I'm old fashioned, like, and there's something special about it. But like the 2 frees that she missed against Cork were off the ground, and 2 frees that she missed like the other day were off the ground as well. Like. So I suppose it depends on what they're more comfortable with. Like.
Yeah, they say, I think there's a study done years ago. Now, I can't remember the exact facts, but I remember the results of it were, did they say it's actually easier to kick them off the ground? There's less chance of making a mistake. But then I suppose power-wise, especially in ladies football, maybe it's harder to get her up off the ground. I don't know, Dearbhla, is there thoughts on that in the ladies' world?
Well, I agree with you there. Like, you know, it's the power that's the problem, really. Like, but to be fair to Ashley, she had the accuracy, like, you know, and it was just curling out towards the end. Like, she had the power, you know, but it was just the last kind of coming to the end is where it pulled away on her. But it's not something you're seeing often in the ladies' game, and that's kind of why even they brought in the rule of if you score 45, it's worth 2 points. And it's just to completely encourage girls to get used to kicking the ball off the ground. You know, and even as goalkeepers, like, look, I play in goal myself, and you'd hardly ever see anyone either kicking the ball off the ground either. You would the odd time, but you know, the girls are really taking the advantage of kicking every ball out of their hand when they can, like, you know.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I saw her doing it, as you said, when she missed the 2 of them. I was like, because she picked up the ball then for the next couple. But I was just thinking, is that the norm? But you're saying it isn't really.
Yeah, we've seen now. can't think of her name offhand now. One of the Leitrim footballers at the weekend, she kicked 45. It's only the second time in history it's after been done since the rule came in. So it's not that common for a ball to be kicked over the bar from that distance. So, but like you said, Paul, Tipp could have snuck it at the end. It would have been robbery. I think Ashley Maloney got her hand to that ball that came in, and Aoife Murray was on the goal line to flick it out. But if Tipp had to get out there with a win, it would have been sick for Waterford because they were by far the better team.
Yeah, here, sure. Yeah, I thought that was for Dearbhla. But no, you're dead right. They had plenty of chances. Tipperary to try and steal, but Waterford, sure, they seem to have a very good game plan. They're well coached, and I think Shane Renane said something similar after his own game. He said Waterford have a good system. They're well coached. And you could see that, like, even the fact that they had 4 on Maloney, they weren't letting players through, and then they were so economical with the ball themselves. Like, as we mentioned a while ago, they didn't have a huge amount of possession, but every time they did have the ball, they did something with it, and I suppose that's why they won in the end.
Yeah, and just looking at team sheets that were released during the week, we've seen that none of them came out and went with the 15 that started. We have Shane Renane spoke to you after the game. This was what he had to say on the matter.
Yeah, look, I'll make no apologies for it. We played Tipperary last Sunday. I got back home to Mitchelstown at 5:30, and 4 hours later, a team sheet was looked for today. I think that's ridiculous. It's a week. We didn't even know what our injury situation was. So I sent in an alphabetical team. If they wanted to print it that way, they could have printed it that way. They could have printed a programme. The men's game, I saw Liam Cal do it 2 weeks ago, and they were giving out about having it in for a Friday morning. I had to have it in 7 days before the game, which I think is unacceptable. And I think they got the answer they deserved, and I don't care about any. I'm not going to make any apologies to anyone about that. We had no idea who was available to us, who was fit, who could play. So I'll make no apologies over that. We named our team on Friday night, and the team was. Look, as I said, I'm not going to make any apologies for that. If anyone wants to give out about it, not really bothered. Our camp is a very happy camp, and we'll do it. I will look after my players and make sure my players are looked after before any media or any organisation looked after. We broke no rules today, and I'm not really bothered.
Just speaking from a logistic point of view, you can understand why the ladies Gaelic probably need to get the team a couple of days earlier. Where do you think the happy medium might be?
Well, look, I know from experience if you're playing an All-Ireland final, the team has to be into Crow Park on the Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning would be fair enough. That wouldn't be published till the Friday. And I suppose, look, you'd have a chance to tell your players. But as I said, I had no idea. We had a very serious injury last week, like Rachel Lee's probably out for the season. We got a few more knocks in that game. We had no idea last Sunday night. A few hours on a bank holiday weekend, we had no idea who was going to be available to us. Look, and I know that there is logistics with the media and things like that, and promotion of the game. But I think it was too much of an ask to have a team in 7 days before the game.
Yeah.
Paul, you can kind of understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, in fairness, you couldn't argue with that. And he said they're putting in a team on a Sunday evening is very, very difficult, especially when they just finished the game. Like, I don't think he'll be stood for in the men's game, to be honest. I think he's right to be angry about it. Now, we know ourselves, we need a team during the week. Everyone needs a team. For promotion of the game, as he said himself, you do need it. But the Sunday evening is, like, that doesn't help anyone. I don't think even the likes of us are looking ahead just yet in the Sunday evening. Like, as he said, Tuesday or Wednesday will probably be still okay, and it gives him a chance to have at least one session with the girls and see who's injured. So, I think in fair, I don't agree with what he did. It actually made commentating very difficult on Sunday, because you're looking down and you're seeing number 29 and you're seeing number 23 and you're like, oh, who's that? And you're usually down and you see a number 6 and you're like, oh sure, that's such and such. But they were all over the shop today, so it did make my job much more difficult. So I wish he wouldn't do it again, but I can understand why he did it at the same time.
Yeah, because look, Dearbhla, we see it there in Tipp. We're doing matches, and we'd get a team during the week for commentary and that, and to do our graphics and our research. And we'd always go to the teams before the game. It's crept into the club game as well, where, we're going as the team. And 2 minutes into the game, there's changes all over. Like, when you go to a manager or one of the selectors maybe 10 or 15 minutes before the game starts, with no changes. what difference is it going to make at that stage? Like, it's not as if we're going over to the other team and giving them to them.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, it's creeping into clubs now as well. And I don't know. I just can't see the point of it. Like, look, looking for games on Sunday is ridiculous. And the same thing happened even for the under 16 Munster this year. That they requested the team to be sent in before they even actually played a month, technically like their Munster semi-final, and they were looking for their team to be submitted for their Munster final. Now, logically, that makes no sense because you don't know what's going to happen in that game, and yet they're expecting to send in a team. Like, and look, you could be misfortunate, you could pick up 7 or 8 injuries that you'd be hoping to start, and it's like anything. Like, these girls are getting, like, as Shane Renan mentioned, he came home to Mitchelstown at 5:30 and was expected to send in a team for the following week, only a few hours later, with two girls going off injured. And he hadn't a clue if they were going to be available or not. Like, and as Paul said, the Wednesday, I think, is plenty of time, because as he said, you're getting in a training with the girls, you know where these girls are at. Like, and if you're being realistically, more than likely these teams aren't being printed out until Wednesday anyway. They're not being published until Friday. So if they haven't for that long, what are they doing? Like, so I think something really needs to be done about that, or it is going to start getting really frustrating for not only teams but the likes of us, commentators, any of the media that are doing work with ladies football, and to be seeing the whole team's completely jumbled up again. Like, it is going to get frustrating big time.
Yeah, and I suppose, Paul, if you see a team that was named during the week when it's released on a Friday, and you're part of that panel, and you're wearing number 28 or 29, but you're actually starting, like, number one, you have to keep it away from your family and your friends, but number two, that you could easily think that, I'm only playing because somebody's carrying a knock and I wouldn't be starting otherwise. And you could be going into a game not full of confidence the way you should be.
Yeah, and there's a certain esteem to, I suppose, getting to wear 1 to 15. If we're wearing 29, you're like, oh, I'm starting. And maybe players don't care, but there is definitely a certain, I suppose, prestige to getting to wear the 1 to 15. Now, to be fair to Shane Ryan, I think this is slightly different to the likes of Dearbhla Nan, like I think we mentioned during the week, and things like that, purposely sending in dummy teams. I think in this case, Shane Ryan was almost protesting as opposed to sending in a dummy team or trying to get an advantage from it. I think he just didn't agree with what was put in front of him. Like, but it does make a mockery of the whole program then. Like, I don't know where the ladies Gaelic charged them from it the weekend. I don't think they were. But in general, like, what you're charging people to pay for these programs, and then they're absolutely just works of fiction. It makes no sense. Like, even the Waterford one now, I'm not sure. Like, they might have maybe more of a case to answer. Like, I think they had Megan Dunford to start at full back. Knowing full well she was never going to start at full back, and they sent in the team. So, like, there's probably more to that than what Shane Ryan did in some ways.
Yeah, because it looks like Megan Dunford is going to miss most of the season at this stage. Like, so putting her on that team made no sense whatsoever. And now maybe these girls were called in to the panel later on in the week, but they had 26 named, and Saturday evening we got word that there was another 3 added onto the team sheet. Like, so, and one of them, Ava Sharkey, actually came on. And, like, even doing the likes of the graphics and that for the screens, like, they all had to be designed during the week. Look, I know we're kind of looking at it from our point of view, and you can see where the managements are coming as well. But I suppose another way of looking at it too is when the teams have been forwarded, some players have seen a team been released on social media without actually being told whether they're playing or not. So I can understand to a certain degree, but they can play. Like, I know the way Liam Cahill was going with Tipp against Clare a couple of weeks ago, and he wanted to tell his players they actually trained at 4:30 on the Friday, so the team could be released at 6 o'clock. Like, that means players getting off work, and if they're living up the country, you're taking a half day anyway. So, but trying to trying to get him released before the players. No, I can understand that as well. Like, so, but there's an argument for and for against it, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know what the bigger picture is, and people probably don't care about us in the media and what we have to do and what we don't have to do. They're probably just going to keep talking about the football. But it is annoying, and it's definitely something that irked Shane Ronayne there on Sunday. So we'll see what he does for this week. And I imagine, just from a pure practical point of view, in this case, I think there was 8 changes from the programme, and players and supporters more supporters, I should say, who were watching that match must have had a clue what was going on. So from that point of view, I think, yeah, from us giving out about the teams and media, maybe they don't care as much, but they definitely, when they look out at the team and see your 28s and your 29s and all playing, they must have been thinking this is very strange. And hopefully it can be sorted out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because I just another thing on it, like, and more or less use the squad numbers. You'd hear people talking about why don't they use squad numbers for the year, but if players' names were to be put back on the back of a jersey, which is it's done in the camogie for an All-Ireland. I'm not sure if it's done in the football or not, but if jerseys like that are being sold, that's going down the commercial route. Like, if your name has been used, you're probably entitled to something. Like, if a Premier League soccer player's name is on the back of a child's jersey, that Premier League player is getting paid for it. So it's a route that you probably couldn't use, really. Because it
I'll let you handle that one. I'm not sure what to say legally on that one.
Yeah, no, it's a hard one, and like that. Look, the ladies, the football, you know, they don't get their names on their jerseys on All Ireland. It is there to come out what it call it. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Like, it's a hard one, really, because, you know, there's, as you said, like, there's girls going out wearing 28, 29, 30, and they're all starting, like, you know, it's kind of getting to the stage, like, sure, you know, it's just a number now. And, you know, I remember playing, like, if you were getting 1 to 15, it was a massive privilege. Like, you know, yes, I'm going to start now, like, you know, and now you're wearing 15, but you're actually sitting on the bench, like, you know, it's confusing, really, to be honest, like.
Yeah, well, I suppose we're not going to figure it out anyway or get the solution. Paul, looking ahead to this weekend, Waterford and Cork has to make it a cracker.
Yeah, like, effectively the Munster semi-final, it's come down to almost a knockout. Now, I know it has ramifications for seedings for the All-Ireland series as well, but, like, yeah, I know it's a real one to get your teeth into, all right. You're expecting a brilliant game. Like, they met in the league as well, didn't they, a few weeks back, and that one finished 2-9 to 2-9, so it was a draw in that one. So there's not much between the sides, and they're both kind of coming into it now. You'd imagine Cork would have got a huge lift from last Sunday and coming back from 10 points down. You can imagine they'd be absolutely buzzing to play at home again. And then Waterford, after winning as well and knowing they could get to a Munster final here, you can imagine both teams are going to be going all out for it, and it should be a great game.
Yeah, and Dearbhla, I suppose Cork are on a high after coming back from them 10 points down and playing a Clonakilty then as well. Home advantage is going to have a big bearing on it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, always playing at your home does give you that little extra boost. And as you said, from last Sunday to come from 10 points down to come back and draw the game, I mean, that's a huge positive to be taken into any game. And look, they're just, I suppose Shane is just going to put in another huge effort with them girls and see if he can get that win on Sunday with them. But I've no doubt as well that it will be a very exciting game, because the way Waterford are playing as well, I think it will be a very physical game. And you know, Paul could even be seeing a lot more that the charge and issues coming up again, like, you know, and that's just the way it'll go. But I think it will definitely be a very good game of football.
Yeah, and Paul, will Karen McGrath start full back again, or will they move her out the field, do you think?
Well, just my opinion on it now. I'm sure Pat O'Sullivan will have maybe other thoughts, but I'd be definitely moving her further out the field. Like, I think, like one thing that I'm sure Waterford will be looking at is the pressure that Cork kick-out was under. Like, Maeve O'Sullivan couldn't get the ball outside her 21. Like, I think they conceded at least 1-1, 1-2 from maybe unforced errors almost. Like, their kick-outs were turned over. Louise Ní-Bhurra was in on top of them, and they managed to get scores out of it. So you'd imagine they'd be putting on a big press on that kick out, and Karen McGrath would probably potentially be part of that. So they'd be really going for it. I'd say if they watched that from that, or took that from the video of last week's game, that'd be one thing. And they would be trying to put on that press and try and catch them, because they're solid enough at the Waterford we saw last week against Tipp. They're very solid at the back. So if they can put the pressure on that Cork kick out, I'd say they're going to get big results from it.
Yeah, because we've seen in the last 2 games as well, when you run a Cork, you can open them up.
And I suppose with the Murrays and like for Waterford, there's a couple of really strong runners in there who were able to exploit that. Maybe not to the same extent as Niamh Carmody for Kerry can do, but they still have plenty of good, strong, hard runners in there. And then if they can knock it into the likes of McMahon, and if McGregor continue her form from last week, they're going to really put her up to Cork on Sunday.
Yeah, and Dearbhla, the fancy calling it.
I don't know. I think it's going to be, I think, like nearly like a tennis match, to be honest with you, because after seeing both the way they play, I just don't think there's going to be a whole lot in it. But just from seeing how Cork have performed, and just even the performance against Kerry, I thought was phenomenal. I think Cork might just get over the end.
And what do you think yourself, Paul?
Yeah, I probably agree with Dearbhla, even though I got predictions completely wrong last week, I think. But yeah, you'd have to fancy Cork at home as well. But yeah, I still wouldn't be surprised if Waterford put it up to them. And Waterford did get the win. But if I had to put money on it, I'd probably be putting it on Cork at this point.
Yeah, and Kerry and Tipp in Banch, well, it's just working it out the way the results are going. If Waterford, Kerry are +6 at the minute, Cork are +3. So Tipp would have to beat Kerry and Cork not lose by too much against Waterford for Kerry not to make a Munster final. But it's a shot to nothing for Tipp. Tipp are going to finish 4th anyway. So I'd actually fear for them Sunday. I hate saying it, but I'd fear for Tipp against Kerry on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it could be, a very tough day for them. Just seeing the way, I know I'm coming back to Cork again, but just seeing the way Cork played against Kerry, and the way Kerry are playing their football and stuff, and look, they lost to Cork there the first weekend, but unless Tipp, really get going from the start and taking over the first couple of scores, I think they will be put under huge pressure by Kerry. And just the way Kerry moved the ball, like they moved the ball at a very fast pace, and I think Tipp might just get caught. And look, yourselves, they know the way Ashley Maloney's been playing, and they're probably more likely going to do the same thing and bottle her up. But then I'm saying that Tipp know Louise Murhertig, like the football that she's been playing as well is phenomenal. So look, you have them at either side of the field. So it's are they going to bottle the two of them out and be down a few players and only be playing nearly a tennis-side game of football, really, if you take them out of it? Like, it's just, I don't know, I think it will be a very tough game for Tipp unless they get going from the start.
Yeah, this could be the first 2 games to play, Paul, because obviously Tipp are going to finish 4th, but 4th and Munster, which is Tipp, are going to be in the same group as the Munster champions later on in the year.
Yes, things aren't getting any easier. Like I hadn't done the match as much as you. I was half thinking the Tipp maybe could get something out. It mightn't finish 4th if things go their way, but I had to figure out Kerry are more or less definitely in the Munster final, so I thought there might be something for Tipp to play for. But if what you're saying is right, then they're just playing for pride a little bit at the moment. If they can't even get out of 4th, it'll be strange, or be interesting to see what Peter Creedon does. Does he give a load of new players a run now because they have finished 4th? What does he do with them this week? It'll be interesting to see what they try to do. Like, do they just try to keep the score down there as well? Do they go for it? Do they try a new tactic? Like, there's a lot of what they could try, especially if their fate is already sealed. Yeah,
and it's what Dearbhla, if you do try and give a few of the other players a run out at the weekend, if they were to take a heavy beating, it wouldn't do much for confidence going into championship.
No, not really, to be honest. And there's on the Tipp team, like, there's a lot of young girls, after getting brought in, and if they're going out to play against Kerry and get a trimming, like, it will, their confidence won't go anywhere, really, to be honest. But look, as well, to playing at this level as well, and to be fair to Tipp, they have been putting up performances. It's not as if they've been going out and getting cricketed in every game that they played. They have been playing excellent football, and even the day we were over in Kerry and seeing them playing against Cork, it was probably one of the best games of football Tipp have ever produced for anyone. And they did put up a performance against Waterford. They were just misfortunate to not get the scores that, that were there for them. But I think still, as Paul said, look, at this stage, they're playing for pride, and look, there's a lot to take out of the championship for them. But I don't think it will be a great confidence boost for them, for the younger ones, if they do, if Peter decides to, really change it up a bit for them on Sunday.
Yeah, because Anna Rose Kennedy picked up an injury early on Sunday, Paul, and I'm not sure how serious it was, but she'll be a huge loss there in the middle of the field.
Yeah, absolutely massive. And one maybe saving grace, speaking of injuries, might be if Louise Devora-Hurtig is rested. If she did pick up, now I'm not sure how bad the injury is, but maybe they might decide, we'll give you a rest. We're more or less guaranteed to be in the Munster Final, and that'll surely help things from a Tipp perspective, especially if they're down a few players themselves, because it could be a tough day.
How serious did Sheepa O'Shea's injury look, Paul, when she came off?
She was down for a good while, as you saw, and they even had a stretcher going over to her. Now, by the time the stretcher got over to her, she was back up and able to walk off herself. But like, the fact she was able to walk off herself, I suppose, is a good sign. You don't want to be commenting too much, I suppose, on medical issues, but she walked off the field, which I suppose was the most positive thing you could say about it. But I don't know, like, she didn't play the first day against Waterford either. So she hasn't a huge amount of game time in her legs in this championship. So will they want to play her again the next day? If she's able, I'd say they will. Why wouldn't you play her at this stage, I suppose, to get some time into her legs?
Yeah, and like as we said, the Tipper and hiding to nothing, they can just throw the kitchen sink at it. Like, they're probably coming up against the favourites for the All-Ireland. So even if throwing in a good performance will augur well going into championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and that's what everyone expects out of teams, is once they put in a performance, you can't give out to them or criticize them anyway. And look, they have really come on leaps and bounds, I think, even from the league. Tipp they're getting back to themselves again. And as you said, if they can come away on Sunday knowing that they've put in a performance, I mean, look, you can't ask for any more out of them,
Yeah, and I suppose Caitlin Kennedy is a huge loss there. Like, we've seen it last Sunday. If a player like Caitlin Kennedy was there to break the line, like, Waterford had a wall up in front of them, and the loss that she is now going away for the summer this year, and that is huge, Dearbhla.
Oh, it is, yeah. And look, we've seen her play, and even the way she plays with her sister Anna Rose, like, they have a savage way of playing when they're on the field together. And Caitlin has been playing phenomenal football every time she comes out there. It's very easy to watch her because everything she does it at such a high standard, and she never seems to do us anything wrong. It's just perfect football she plays, and she's a huge loss going off on her J1 and stuff. And look, and if Anna Rose now was missing on Sunday with her injury, and please God she's not, that's another huge loss as well.
Yeah, and the killing thing about it is, Paul, with somebody like Caitlin Kennedy, the 3 girls that are gone to Australia, she mightn't be too far after him.
Yeah, there is talk of that, isn't there? And like, you don't like thinking about that, but like, this Tipperary team, how different would it be if they had those girls back? Like, it'd be such a different team. They'd be up there with the likes of Kerry, the likes of Meath. But then is maybe that disrespectful to the girls who are still there? I don't know. I was just thinking as you were talking there, and the fact we're saying maybe the match, Tipp have nothing to lose. You were talking about last week, like an experiment they could do, bringing out Lauren Fitzpatrick. Is next Sunday the time to do it? Like, even when she got on the ball a good few times again there last Sunday, like, she looks so confident. She's a decent kick of a ball in her as well. Like, next Sunday might be the time to try out something completely radical and put her up centre forward like you were suggesting last week.
But if there's a team she's sent in number 1, and next minute you see they'll be doing a job to get a number 1 outfield jersey printed during the week. But just looking at with the amount of players gone to Australia, like, it's hard to see them or to stop them, but is there any way to give them an incentive to stay here?
To be honest, I don't think so. Look, I remember having the conversation here. If I got offered in the morning to go over and play, I wouldn't think twice about it. You see these girls over in Australia. It's a professional sport. They're getting everything over there, and they're playing at a huge level, and week in, week out, they're getting, their physios sorted, they're getting, huge nutrition done. They're doing strength and conditioning programs. Gym is looked after for them, you know. And don't get me wrong, ladies football, it's getting to the stage, you know, it's an elite sport, but they're not getting the same recognition that these girls are when they're going over to Australia playing at the professional level, you know, and they're getting paid for it. And, you know, hopefully, like, it's going to start coming into the ladies football game, because if you look at it, the amount of Irish girls that have been playing here, whether it's Meath with Armagh, Tipp, and that now they're heading over to Australia, you know, it proves that they're doing something, you know, incredible over here to get recognised, to be able to go over and play at a professional level, like, you know, it's sooner, hopefully, rather than later, that ladies football will start getting that more, you know, balanced recognition. And, you know, as it is, it's going to turn into a professional sport very soon.
Like, if you think about it as well, Tipperary have been very unlucky or lucky, whatever way you want to look at it. Like, their players have stayed there and stuck there. Like Orla and Aisling, they've stayed over there. But we had Eric O'Shea back playing for Cork last Sunday, and you've Rachel, her surname has gone for me, above in Mayo. They're number 14. She was over there. Did you say what her name was, Dearbhla?
Rachel Kearns.
Yes. And she's an absolute beast on the field. She loved, I think she said, I loved the physicality, but she's back. Like, they seem to get their players back, and Tipperary haven't got their players back, which is, like, even Vicky Wall is back, and Amy Mackin, like we're saying, they're all going to go back again, apparently. But the Tip girls didn't come back really for any big stretch of time, which is just a double whammy again for a Tipperary point of view. Or you should be delighted maybe that they're getting the opportunity to play over there, whichever way you want to look at it, I suppose.
Well, if you look at the men's that have gone over and played AFL, they don't have the same impact. A lot of them come back, they don't have the same impact as what the girls are having over there. Like, so these girls are obviously playing at a high standard to step up to the mark over there. Not saying that obviously the men are playing to a high standard as well, but what's the difference with the men not making it and the women?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's hard, and I suppose, you know, maybe it's the way their seasons are running. And I know there was talks that the AFL are going to start, you know, kind of working opposite season to the football season to allow the Irish girls come home and play with their county, you know, and even a few club games, because there was so much girls not being, you know, that they weren't able to come home and play. But I don't know, like, why the men are, you know, you'd see none of them really coming home. Like, you wouldn't hear of it really. Like, and I suppose in a way it's a bonus for the girls that, you know, they're kind of getting a sport that's kind of recognised for them, like, you know. But, like, you look at the likes of Conor Reardon, who has never, I don't think, has come home, you know, and there hasn't even been talks that he's come back home to play, or has there?
Well, he came back to win the Munster, didn't he, when Tipp won the Munster in 2020, but yeah, you're right. In general, he hasn't. And I think one of the big things is, though, the sport, well, gone professional, the women's AFL is relatively new. And I think if you listen to some of the quotes or stuff that's written about it, they're saying the Tipp, or the Irish girls in general, are hitting the ground running because they're already up to the level. And at the start, anyway, the ladies over in Australia weren't up at the same level. That's why they were able to kind of get in so quick. And I think it's just because the ladies' football game is such a high standard comparatively. And then maybe the Gaelic football men's wise with AFL maybe isn't on the same level. Maybe that's why it's a bit harder. But there's probably 100 reasons. That's one theory on it anyway.
Yeah, but like these girls coming home, it'll come to a stage where clubs are saying we're paying your wages, and they mightn't let them home. Like, so. It's hard to see what way they'll do to try and keep these top level players in Ireland and playing in Ireland and trying to get them home.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's phenomenal that there's so many Irish girls, you know, heading over there. But a lot of counties, you know, they're depending on these girls. Like, if you look at Tipp, like, you're going to be losing 3 now. Do you know? 3 girls that have been huge assets to ladies football with Tipp for the last number of years, and to be losing them, like, you know, we're not a huge county, do you know what I mean? So to be losing 3 key girls, like, you know, and then if they go over there and they're not allowed to come back, you know, Tipp are going to be kind of like, geez, you know, what are we going to do now? Like, you know, and as you said, if they do, clubs over there be like, look, I'm paying your wages, you know, you're not going over there, you know, it's hard on them as well. Like, it's a hard decision to be sitting in, because obviously you start with ladies with your football, you know, and then you're just getting their recognition and, you know, getting offered a huge thing to go over to Australia. But look, I don't know, and hopefully that something will be done, that girls will be allowed to come back and they're not going to be stuck in a horrible situation that, well, when they go over, they're kind of stuck over, and that's it, like.
Yeah, because the likes of Breed McMaw, Paul, she'd take to it like a duck to water. Like, Waterford are in danger of losing players. Laois have lost 5 players from their league panel as well. Like for Laois to lose that amount of players, it's a huge thing.
Yeah. Well, it must be affecting every team. And like, if you're a manager, you must be like, oh, I want my players to play well, but geez, don't play too well. I don't want to be losing you to Australia, kind of thing. Like, so that must be very difficult. And as Dearbhla said, like, what do you say to a young girl if she goes, I'm after getting a chance to play professionally over in Australia? Like, even if it doesn't work out, even if you already go over for a year, what an opportunity. Like, you're not going to get it here on a wet Tuesday evening, mucking up and down the field. Like, you're going to go. Like, so I don't know. There's not a lot they can do. Like, ladies football isn't going to go professional anytime soon. So I think they just have to go. There's nothing the ladies football can do about it. They just have to make the best of what they have. I think that's going to stay.
Yeah, well, hopefully they come to a solution that we can get them back during the summer months and that. So, Paul, you're off to Clonakilty on Sunday, so it should be a cracking game there. So, and we're in Banshee, so we've break then and Munster Finals then the following week. Looks like Limerick and Clare could end up in the Senior B, the way results are going at the moment. So we could have 4 different counties in Mallow in a couple of weeks' time. So don't forget that all the games will be with us with CK Streaming and Clubber TV. If you go to our social media, check out www.clubber.ie, you'll get access to the games. Lads, thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for being to us.